Hey guys, it's smeefu, and this is the first episode of my new bi-weekly series where I'll go over the patch specifically to do with heroes. I'll look in depth and test changes with every single hero and show you guys what has changed. So be sure to watch to see what has changed with your heroes, and if you want to pick up and try a new one, like and subscribe, and do enjoy the video. So for Bebop, when you cast his uppercut, it no longer roots you in place, you can still move around, which feels amazing on the hero. You can also shoot on Bebop and jump at the same time if your weapon was already firing. So these two things combined just makes the character feel a lot more fluid. It's honestly a really nice change for Bebop. They've reverted his hook to not have an alternate cast anymore, so you can't hook your enemies through your allies anymore, which is kind of sad. That was a good thing. But now his hyper beam has splash damage in an area at that's the same as around you, from the impact point at the end of the beam, as you're seeing demonstrated here right now. However, there is something weird going on with it. The AoE for some reason respects line of sight. As you can see here, my friend is outside of line of sight, but he's still stood in the AoE, and he is not taking any damage. I doubt that's intended. But we'll wait and see. Right now, that's how it is. Quick changes for Dynamo. Rejuvenating Aurora T3 talent reduced from 4% max health to 3.8%, though it doesn't show in game for some reason. Kinetic Pulse T1 slow reduced from 40% to 35%. Quantum Entanglement cooldown increased from 11 seconds to 12 seconds. And you can now use stamina during Rejuvenating Aurora without it cancelling the ability, though for some reason you can't dash jump. So Haze has had a weird change. It's good, but it works weird. Her Sleep Dagger now respects line of sight. Even if the hitbox is poking through, Sleep Dagger will not sleep them. But this does work in a weird way when they're sticking out the side of an object. Sleep Dagger seems to go directly through them until you see enough of their hitbox. So yeah, that's weird. Now, my favorite hero, Infernus, he actually got some love this patch, with a little bit of hate, but it's not too bad. His base health was reduced from 625 to 600, which is not dreadful. Let's be real, it's okay. But the slow resist on Flame Dash was upped from 30% to 50%, which feels great. It's nowhere near as bad as it was before. And yeah, definitely a good buff to Infernus. I'm happy about it. So Kelvin's Arctic Beam got kind of destroyed. The fire rate slow is now from 80% to 40%, meaning he can take substantial damage while shooting people with it now. The movement slow is also down to 70% from 80%. The thing that really hurts Kelvin, though, is now his dome will freeze objectives, including the Rejuvenator. So now you cannot dome the Rejuve after you kill the mid-boss and get it for free. You also can't dome objectives and take them. As you'll see here, when I dome the tower, it becomes frozen and takes 0 damage. So yeah, this patch really hurt Kelvin overall. Not good. So quickly, Lady Geist has some changes. Malice will now go through targets properly and only consume one of the balls on the first target. Essence Bomb has had its T3 damage from 22% per second to 26% per second. The spirit scaling has also gone from 1.05 to 1.15. And self-damage now no longer consumes shields, only health. So McGinnis has had some interesting changes. To start off with, the radius of her heal has been reduced from 6 to 5 meters. But the radius now scales with spirit power along with the duration. So you can see with Boundless Spirit here, the radius is absolutely massive. And with improved reach, it's even bigger. I'm going to cook up some McGinnis healer build. It's going to be crazy. You can no longer wall jump from Spectral Wall. Spectral Wall min range reduced from 7 meters to 6 meters. The duration reduced from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. Heavy Barrage spirit scaling has been increased from 0.3 to 0.35. The Heavy Barrage min range reduced from 7 meters to 6 meters. And mini turrets have had their bullet travel speed increased. For Mo and Krill, he now gets way better FOV. The camera zooms out when he's unburrowing and while he's in burrow. For some reason, I don't know who thought this was a good idea to give him, because he's already strong enough. But for some reason, he can cast Scorn while he's channeling combo now. So even if he messes up and does a stupid combo, he can heal up and probably live. The T2 duration has been reduced from plus 1 second to plus 0.75. So starting off with Abrams, his charge stun duration when he puts you into a wall has been reduced slightly. Off the start of the game, this doesn't really change any interactions. He can still get a heavy melee off, but without you being able to parry. But if the person he charges has bought debuff reducer, then they will actually be able to parry the heavy melee if he tries to go for it. Even if he buys superior duration and imbues it on his charge, someone with debuff reducer will be able to parry his melee. The only way he can actually get a melee off against someone with debuff reducer is with superior duration on his charge plus magic carpet for the extra 10% duration. While you're seeing that in the background, I'll explain his other changes. They fixed his ult, the seismic impact, getting stuck on ceilings and stuff like in the big mid-boss room. His third ability, his passive, the Infernal Resilience, has been reduced from 17% damage regenerated to 16%. And there'll be a clip in a second where his turn radius has been reduced. So as you can see here, still with superior duration, I'm able to parry him when he stuns me on the wall. But now he's bought magic carpet. He's going to try and charge me, and I can't parry. So yeah, here's a little clip of the turn rate being reduced. It doesn't look too different. I don't play much Abrams, so I'm not too sure. But my friend who's on Abrams right now said it feels significant, but to me, it doesn't look too bad. So Paradox has had a minor change. The Paradoxical Swap ultimate now can no longer hit through walls, even if the hitbox is poking through. But unlike some of the other changes in this patch, it doesn't totally respect line of sight. So as long as you throw the Paradox Swap past the wall and the hitbox connects with them, it still works. So Pocket has had some quality of life, but also some nerfs. His barrage amp per stack at base is from 7% to 6%. The slow reduced from 40% to 30%, but they have added a brief lockout period on Flying Cloak to prevent accidental double clicks. What you're seeing on the screen right now is the fastest you can teleport to the cloak, so if you do actually double click, you won't TP. So 7 has had his ultimate sound increased, and it's much more clear to hear. So as you can see right here, when I'm facing away and stuff, I'm very easily able to tell where 7 is ulting from just from the sound. Before it wasn't very clear, and this definitely helps. 7's other changes are pretty bad for him. His base bullet resist is no longer 8%, it's down to 0 like the rest of the cast. His bullet resist also no longer increases with level ups, which is just horrible for 7. Headshot reduction is increased from 25% to 35%, but it's not going to offset what's happened to his bullet resist. His storm cloud damage is reduced from 124 to 110. The max radius reduced from 30 meters to 25 meters, and the cooldown reduced from 180 seconds to 140 seconds. For Shiv, they're again fixing the knives working through walls, like other changes we've seen so far. But it also seems to work a bit like Haze's dagger, how even if you see a bit of their hitbox, because they're not in your line of sight fully, that the knife doesn't connect, which feels weird and inconsistent. I'm not too sure if I like it. His slice and dice damage is reduced from 125 to 105 at base. Bloodletting, deferred damage cleared, now reduced from 50% to 40%. And his ult's rage damage amp is from 25% to 20%, but he gets that extra 5% back at T2. So Grey Talon has had a few changes, but most notably charged shot. Even if you can see the hitbox of a player, if they're behind a wall, charged shot respects line of sight. But this works weirdly, like with Haze Dagger. And even if you see their hitbox peeking out a little bit, charged shot will not hit them, even if their hitbox collides with it. I don't like how this feels. It's inconsistent, like with Paradoxical Swap we saw earlier, working. They've tried to do the same with Guided Owl. Again, you're seeing the inconsistency. It says Guided Owl doesn't hit through buildings anymore, but it hits through the sign. Even though the AoE is big enough, it's not hitting through the truck, so it's pretty weird. Other than that though, while you're watching this testing, Rain of Arrows weapon damage reduced from +7 to +4. Rain of Arrows T2 weapon damage reduced from +7 to +5. So, however, Grey Talon's base bullet damage growth per boon is increased from 1.46 to 1.8. So later in the game, you'll be able to offset those nerfs. And the Guided Owl cooldown has been increased from 110 seconds to 120 seconds. That's it for Grey Talon. So Vindicta has had a lot of changes. The most interesting one, though, is how her bonus souls work through Assassinate. Vindicta now shares Assassinate souls with her teammates. She doesn't keep the full value, she shares them. So as you saw from that kill, I got 450 souls. But on the assist, I get 272 and my friend gets 198. Now you'll see if we upgrade the ultimate to give the bonus 600 souls per assassination, I get 1k souls for the kill. Whereas if my teammate goes for the assist, I get 578 and he gets 500. So Vindicta is going to be a lot less fed, but she's also going to feed her teammates pretty heavily. Vindicta's other changes are that her base bullet damage has been reduced from 14 to 13. Stake T1 duration reduced from plus 0.75 seconds to plus 0.5 seconds. The Crow Familiar now reduces enemies' bullet armor by 6%. The impact damage from Crow Familiar has been reduced from 50 to 40. The impact damage spirit scaling has also been reduced from 1 to 0.8. The Crow Familiar's spirit power duration scaling has been reduced from 0.04 to 0.03. You can now use stamina while flying with Vindicta to get an impulse in the facing direction. This does feel weird though, as I'm demonstrating on screen. It doesn't really work properly, I don't think. She doesn't seem to move fast sometimes. Assassinate now also does 20% more damage when you get a headshot. So this is pretty big for her and is going to increase her damage heavily. On to Viscous, nothing too crazy, but some good stuff here. His Puddle Punch will now correctly knock people around that are in the cube, which is obviously great. They've fixed some bugs with his camera bugging out, which is nice for Viscous players. Puddle Punch will now telegraph an effect before it forms, as you saw just then. The base bullet damage has been reduced from 14 to 13. Splatter damage reduced from 110 to 100. The goo ball turn rate has been slightly improved. And also the frequency of the cooldown on stuns have been improved from 1.5 seconds to 1.25 seconds. So you'll be able to stun people every 1.25 seconds in the goo ball. Plus the improved turn rate, which is really nice for Viscous players, honestly. Not that this character needs any love. I hate Viscous players, just saying. They've also fixed Puddle Punch going through Unstoppable. So as you'll see here, if someone has Unstoppable, Puddle Punch won't knock them around anymore. That was really stupid. Warden has had his bullet growth reduced from 1.31 to 1.2. The debuff duration from Alchemical Flask has gone from 7 seconds to 6 seconds. And the radius of the damage from Alchemical Flask has been reduced from 7 meters to 6.5 meters. The last change on Warden is that you gain a 50% bullet resist during the 2 second of the ult channel, which is really nice. So Wraith has had some small changes here. Her card trick base damage has been reduced from 100 to 80, but don't worry, if the enemy has a slight bit of spirit resist, it's still enough damage to make the Mystic Burst proc because Mystic Burst doesn't work properly. Card trick spirit scaling has been increased from 1.2 to 1.5. And the projectile now spawns above the reticle rather than on the left side, which feels better. Now last but not least, we have Yamato. Her ammo now scales with spirit power at a rate of 0.15. So with Boundless Spirit, you get an extra 12 bullets in the mag. Power Slasher's base damage has been reduced from 170 to 160. Grapple, so her 2, has had a post-cast duration reduction from 0.5 to 0.2, which means you can act quicker after casting the ability. Her alt fire is now fixed and will work with conditional damage sources. So something like close quarters will now increase the damage of her alt fire. Shadow transformation has had the bullet and spirit resistance reduced from 55% to 40%. And Yamato can now interrupt power slash with parry. I'll demonstrate this here, but give it a second because my target dummy is a bit of an idiot. Here you go. So you now don't get punched for free when casting power slash. So guys, thanks for watching the patch notes video. I hope it's been informative and showed you everything you need to know. Do let me know down in the comments if I should change the way I do this, because I do plan to do it every single Thursday, or every single other Thursday even, when they do the patch. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.